Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome once again to the supply chain management model. Today, we want to look at inventory management. Over the past few days, we have looked at supply chain management. We've looked at the components of supply chain management. We look at warehousing strategy for efficient supply chain management. Now, inventory management is also very important and a critical component of the supply chain management process. Therefore, we want to look at it in detail by understanding how important inventory management is to the supply chain component. We want to understand the financial impact. We want to get to know the inventory functionalities, 8 principles that are important to achieve customer satisfaction and efficient and effective supply chain. We will identify the various costs involved in maintaining and carrying inventory, and how to introduce the common inventory control management techniques to improve supply chain management of organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, what at all is inventory? Inventory consists of raw materials that you are going to use for manufacturing. It may also include work in progress, which is semi-finished products, and as well as what? Finished goods within the supply chain. Inventory policies are basically, okay, to help maximize inventory turnaround time, while satisfying customers or service commitment. You don't want a situation whereby customers will be in need of the product and there will be no product in stock. You don't want a situation whereby there will be a lot of product in stock and the demand is low. So we keep inventory. We use inventory policies to actually make sure that these things are done and it helps the supply chain. Now, for you to succeed with your inventory management or supply chain, a sound inventory strategy, okay, must be your priority, okay? And this sound inventory strategy is based on a combination of 5 aspects of selective deployment, okay? Sometimes you can look at the core customer segmentation. You look at your customers which are core, are important to your business, okay? And then you, based on that, devise your inventory strategy. Sometimes you look at the profitability of that particular project or product or that goods, and then you can use it to develop your inventory strategy. Sometimes you look at how the transportation integration look like, okay? And then it will help you to, devise your inventory strategy. Sometimes you talk about time-based performance. The other day I was using the time between, China Mall of Ashaman and then Melcom in Ashaman, okay? So if your product are time-bound, then you know the kind of inventory strategy to use. And sometimes look at competitive performance. If you are competing in an environment, you look at your competitive level, competitiveness level to actually, develop your inventory strategy. Like I said, when you look at this diagram here, you can see the inbound logistics and then the outbound logistics, or if you, as you say, the upstream and downstream supply chain. You can see the customer, the supplier, okay, procurement, that is the sourcing activities, to the manufacturing plant or support internal operations of an organization, and then distribution, okay? At all these stages, inventory actually flows. So this illustrates the function of inventory in an organization's supply chain or their value chain to meet the business objective. Inventory functionalities and principles. This can actually be summarized by their geographical specialization, decoupling, demand and supply balancing, buffering uncertainties. Okay, so the functions and the principles of your inventory, okay, are being summarized by these 4 things that have been listed here. Now, let's look at the principles. Let's look at the principles. For instance, as I mentioned, when you talk about the when you look at the geographical specializations, it allows geographical positioning across multiple manufacturing and distributive units of an enterprise. An inventory maintained at the different locations and stages of the value creation process allows specialization. So inventory can be specialized even within, okay, the manufacturing or different distributive units. Okay, if you have different places that you've been storing your product, okay, different inventory functionalities can actually happen at those places and be specialized. And we also talk about decoupling. Decoupling allows economy of scale within a single facility and permit each process to operate at a maximum efficiency rather than having the speed of the entire process constrained by the lowest. And when you talk about the demand and supply, aspect of it, it accommodates the elapsed time, okay, the time between the inventory availability at the time when manufacturing is taking place, at the time that you are taking to actually put the product in shape, and the time of consumption. Okay, you look at that. And then the buffering uncertainties also accommodate uncertainty related to demand in excess of forecast or unexpected delays in order receipt and order processing on delivery, and is typically referred to as safety stock. Sometimes we look at situation, safety stock will be looked at in a later part of this particular topic. But sometimes the planned stock or the planned demand with which the inventory was kept can actually be exceeded and be unexpected. And when it's happening like that, we look at baffling uncertainties. And these principles, baffling uncertainties, demand and supply balancing, decoupling, and geographical specialization, depending on what has been triggered at a certain point, your inventory functionality and principles would be determined. Now, whenever you are formulating, your policy, your inventory policy, okay, there are some guidelines that you actually follow. For instance, you look at what product you want to purchase or you want to manufacture, when you want to take actions, in what quantity of the product you want, the location, and all that. All these things guide the principles with which inventory is being undertaken in the firm. And basically, there are two distinct indicators with which inventory performance is taken, and these include the service level performance and then average inventory. The service level is the performance target specified by management. So in that case, management will specify that this is the target we want, okay, and it defines the inventory performance objective. And service level is often measured in terms of order cycle time, and then case fill rates, line fill rates, order fill rate, or any combination of these is what we use to measure service level performance of an inventory. Sometimes you can look at inventory performance from the average inventory, which consists of the materials, component, work in progress, finished product, typically stocked in logistical system. You look at that one to measure the performance. And from a policy point of view, target inventory levels must be planned for each facility. So at the sourcing facility, it must be planned. At the manufacturing facility, it must be planned. At the warehousing facility, it must be planned. At the wholesale facility, it must be planned. At even the retail level, it must be planned. So let's look at those things that was measured. That are all under the service performance. We said that service performance will look at cycle inventory or base stock, order quantity, safety stock, performance cycle, a case fill, a line fill, order fill, and economic order quantity. So when we talk about a cycle inventory or base stock, basically that's what people normally call lot size stock, okay? What is the portion of the average inventory that results from what? Replenishment. Okay, the portion of the average inventory that results from what? Replenishment. At the beginning of a performance cycle, stock level is at its maximum. Okay, and therefore customers deplete inventory until the stock level reaches minimum. All right. When there is no customer demand, the inventory or the base or the lot size is at a certain point. And as and when customers are buying or demanding for the product, okay, you realize that the stock level comes down. So that's what we mean by, so that cycle with which the goods are being replenished and it is taken, okay, the goods is replenished. The facility is stocked, and then people will buy it or they will come for it and it is replenished. That is what we call the cycle inventory or base stock. All right. Prior to the stock level reaching minimum, a replenish order is initiated so that the inventory will arrive before an out of stock occurs. We don't want to run out of stock. So the replenishment order must be initiated when the available inventory is less than equal to the forecasted demand. So normally you don't wait for all your product to finish before replenishing. The amount ordered for replenishment is termed as what? Order quantity. Please take note. Order quantity simply means the amount ordered for replenishment. Given this basic order formula, average cycle inventory or base stock is equal to 1/2 order quantity. You know, for this model, I don't want to bore you with, mathematics and here and there. So we'll move straight. The other mathematics that I will show you, but will not go into detail. One of the reasons is that this course is being done on, hybrid, and also it's a tailor-made for freight forwarders. And some of the things are typical operations management, and we will not be going into those wild calculations. The majority of inventory in a typical supply chain system is typically called safety stock. Majority of inventory in a typical supply chain system is a safety stock. Safety stock is very, very important. Everybody who understands inventory doesn't joke with their safety stock. This is what is maintained in a logistical system to protect against demand and performance cycle uncertainties. Okay, sometimes when you don't know, you are not aware, you are not certain about the demand, and or sometimes something can happen, something which was not foreseen. Therefore, you keep safety stock to actually absorb those kind of shocks. Safety stock inventory is used only at the end of the replenishment cycle when uncertainties has caused higher than expected demand or longer than expected performance cycle times, which means that the average inventory focus on logistical management is 1/2 order quantity plus a safety stock. Again, I don't want to bore you with the mathematics aspect. Now, what is the meaning of performance cycle? Performance cycle is a elapsed time between the release of a purchase order by a buyer and the receipt of the corresponding shipment. So the time that the buyer orders and the time that they received the consignment is the performance cycle. So if the time that the person orders and the time that you deliver becomes too long, it means that you are not performing. A case fill rate actually defines the percentage of the cases or unit ordered that are shipped as requested. Okay, the percentage of cases or units or items that ordered that are shipped as requested. For instance, if the person requests for 100 and you are able to supply 95, it means that your case fill rate is what? 95%. That's what you're talking about. The remaining 5 cases are what we call back ordered or deleted. When we talk about line fill rate, is the percentage of order lines filled completely. Once you're able to fill it completely, you call it line fill. And order fill is a percentage of customer order filled what? Completely. Now, economic order quantity model provides a specific quantity balancing of these two critical cost components by determining the economic order quantity and dividing it into annual demand, the frequency and size of replenishment orders, minimizing the total cost of cycle inventory is identified. So there's a formula that we use to calculate the minimum or the economic order quantity, okay, and is able to help us to determine the minimum total cost of cycle inventory, which needs to be what? To be fulfilled. Okay. Now, when you talk about inventory, it goes with associated costs. And there are various cost elements which is being accounted for when you want to practice inventory, a good or sound inventory. And one of such costs is the what? Inventory carrying cost. The inventory carrying cost is the expense associated with maintaining the inventory, basically. Inventory expense is calculated by multiplying the annual inventory carrying cost percentage by average inventory value. Okay, when you look at standard accounting practice, it allows you to value your inventory at purchase or standard manufacturing cost rather than selling price. And then when you look at the form, the diagram there is just trying to let you know the elements, okay, involved in maintaining an inventory carrying cost. We also have the capital cost. The capital cost is appropriate charge to place on the capital invested in the what? Inventory. And this varies with respect to different jurisdiction. Review of the varieties of enterprises indicate that assessment range from the prime interest rate is as high as what? 25%. So it depends on what? On the enterprise, the firm where you are operating. And then the other cost element is taxes. Okay, and you know that taxes are, we are authorized to pay tax. And if you're operating warehouses, the taxing authorities assess your inventory that you hold in your warehouses, and then the tax rates and the means of assessing, the tax rate is determined by the government, and the means of assessment vary by location depending on the country which you are actually operating. The tax expense is usually a direct levy based on what? Inventory level on specific day of the year or average inventory level over a period of time. Insurance is also a component and it cushions you in terms of what? Risk. So they estimate it, and then actually they will do justice to it. And we have what? Obsolescence. Obsolescence costs, which result from what? Sometimes the items which are defective, deteriorated, okay, during the storage process. And all those costs must be accounted for in the inventory. And we also look at the storage cost. And then a storage cost is the facility expenses related to the product holding rather than the product handling, where we hold not the handling like carrying materials to no, but where it is stored, the prices or the cost, which is actually, associated with it. So, like I said, the diagram is and a component of an annual inventory carrying cost and a typical range of component costs. And it should be clear that the final carrying cost percent used by a firm is determined by the managerial policy of that particular company. We can also assess the financial impact of inventory. Okay, the financial impact of inventory. Like we saw the financial impact, the impact of warehousing on performance. Inventory also can impact on the organizational performance. Like I told you the other day, your performance, the company's performance can depend on different variables like sales, marketing, human resources, production cost, inventory management, and all that. But there are some researches which has been done on this. So some of the research, they look at the performance based on market segmentations, and they look at the relationship. Inventory impact on performance of a certain company more than other companies. So, I mean, those of you who are interested in articles like that, you can always check from the internet, and you can get interesting papers to read on. When you are planning inventory, there are certain practices that you must undertake. And certain practices that you must understand. And key parameters and procedures include when, the time to order, how much to order, the inventory control guidance, and then what? The whole planning stage. So how do you determine the order time, when to order? Okay, as we discussed earlier, the reorder point defines when the replenishment should be what? Initiated. Okay, when the replenishment should be initiated. Now, look at the formula. This is where I said I don't want to bother you. The basic reorder point formula is when you multiply the average daily demand in the unit, the number of items which the customer wants, times the average performance cycle. Okay, I told you that the performance cycle is the period with which the order is made and the time that it is delivered. Okay, so if you want to illustrate it, assuming your client demand 20 units per day and you need 10 days performance cycle, in this case, your reorder point is the 20 units per day times the 10 days, which is 200 units. And that is your what? Your reorder point. But I will not examine you on this. Okay. Now, determining how much to order. When you want to determine how much to order, these are the things you need to look at: the lot sizing balances. Okay. The lot sizes. When we talk about lot sizes, you are talking about the stock that you have, and then the orders that are being made. Okay. So when you want to determine how much to order, you look at the lot sizing balances inventory carrying cost with the cost of ordering The key to understanding the relationship is to remember that average inventory is equal to 1/2 the order what? Quantity. Therefore, the greater the order quantity, the larger the average inventory, and consequently, the greater the annual carrying cost. Okay. The economic order quantity, as we mentioned, is the what? Replenishment practice that minimize the combined inventory carrying cost and ordering cost. We want to minimize it. So you identify such a quantity which assume that demand and cost are relatively stable throughout the year. And then since the economic order quantity is normally calculated on individual product basis, the product or the basic formula does not consider the impact of joint ordering. That is just for information. In all demand must be satisfied whenever you want to use the the economic order quantity formula. Rate of demand is continuous, that's the assumption. Replenishment performance is constant. I mean, you guys are not mathematical oriented, so these things may not be relevant. It is good for operations guys, but at least it must be mentioned. There is a constant price of the product that is independent of order quantity or the time, and there is an infinite planning horizon. There is no interaction between multiple items of inventory. No inventory is in transit, and no limit is placed on capital availability. So let's look at the role of the safety stock that we've mentioned. No matter how hard firms try to meet customers' requirements in terms of quantity and delivery, there are forces at work which will result in the firm feeling shortage or falling shortage. And this is not new. Okay, this is not new to us. In our local market, it happens to us all the time. Sometimes we run shortage just because of market uncertainties and all that. So because of those things, you need to keep safety stock. Besides, customer demand, other forces at play include shipping delays. Okay, some of these things, shipping delay can cost you not to be able to get the goods for your client. Therefore, you must keep safety stock. Quantity issues, quality issues, discrepancy at inbound area, preference among others. Okay, because of these critical issues, you must always keep safety stock there to cater for these eventualities when they come. Safety stock can be referred to stock that will be used if there is an unusual peak demand. This definition implies that during normal demand, safety stock will be dormant. It will be there waiting to be used when demand surges. There are two types of shortages when it comes to inventory: out of stock situation and stock out. So take note, two types of what? Shortages: out of stock situation and stock out situation. In order to minimize stock out, companies do consider safety stock as an option, and the choice of safety stock will depend on the company's customer service philosophy, which is the overall aim of supply chain, and the customer service level. For instance, you can state that no number of stock outs per period stock investment, or the cost of stock out versus cost of non-stock. All these things can be looked at. So there are some techniques that companies use, inventory managers or operations managers use to maintain their safety stock. Number one, sometimes they use statistical methods, which I will not go into it. Sometimes they use fixed methods, and then these methods, and the last one I think has to do with lead time issues. Okay, they use it to actually compute their safety stock. What I thought is lead time issues in inventory. There are always superior cost There are superior quality, superior delivery, and technological performance. And these do not guarantee success for supply chain, never. Therefore, organization must always strive to be able to compete on a basis of time. Please, cost, quality, delivery, technology are important, but time is of essence. And this does not mean that cost, like I mentioned, are not important. They are, but individual organization and supply chain must be competitive in these areas and should be able to get product and services to their customer faster than the competition out there, because time is money. Adopting an integrated supply chain management approach provide the means to make significant reduction in the cycle time required to move materials among supply chain members to the end user. So you must look at your cycle time, which is the total elapsed time required to complete the business process. We looked at it at the other slide. All too often, only small percentage, that is 3 to 5% of the total elapsed time required to complete a process has anything to do with its real work. It's true. Sometimes it doesn't happen in real time. The rest of the time is typically devoted to a wide range of what? Counterproductive time-consuming activities and events. Identifying, improving, and eliminating these time-consuming activities present one of the major supply chain opportunities area. So what causes long cycle time in your companies? You need to understand. Number one can be what? The waiting time, non-availability, non-value added activities, okay, serial versus parallel operations, repeating processes, and then what? Batching. Then some of the things that have been repeated: excessive controls, lack of synchronization in material movement, ambiguous goals and objectives, poor designed procedures and forms, outdated technology, lack of information, poor communication, unlimited coordination, limited cooperation, and lack or inefficient training. These things can actually, cause delays and long cycle times. So they must be taken care of. Explanations to this, I don't want the video to be too long, so explanations will be provided on a transcript for your perusal. Bullwhip. There is something we call bullwhip effect. Okay. When the cycle lead time problem is actually suffered in a supply chain, lead time issue can lead to problems in a supply chain. And one of these effects is the bullwhip effect. When we talk about bullwhip, one of the main challenges in the supply chain, and in respect of variability, it seems to occur when one does not monitor and control it. If variation swings widely, then supply chain managers need to manage these and minimize them at the greater end variability. The more difficult, the expensive it is to run a supply chain. Therefore, inventory acts as buffer, line balancer, and protection against supply chain variability. Even with inventory, variability is manifested in many forms. This includes, but not limited to, quality issues, delivery issues, forecasting issues, and demand issues. So all these things can lead to bullwhip effect. Bullwhip effect can lead to overreaction to backlogs, neglection, of your order in order to attempt to reduce inventory, no communication up and down the supply chain, and no coordination up and down the supply chain, and delays of information. Therefore, you must try as much as possible to minimize bullwhip effect. I'll put a material on bullwhip effect on the portal for you to actually see what I'm talking about. Some of the ways to keep the bullwhip effect minimized include order batching. When you are using some electronics, technology which capture real demand, random peak demand is counted by more frequent small orders, and small orders have smaller variance. And when a downstream entity order more often, it will not see reduction in order in its own demand variance. That is not critical. And that is more critical and what is more critical is that the upstream entity sees the reduction in demand variation. Let me take that again. When a downstream entity orders more often, it will not see a reduction in its own variance. That is not what's critical. What is more critical is the fact that the upstream entity sees a reduction in the demand variance. You can reduce bullwhip effect by demand signaling, that is lack of demand visibility. And this can actually be addressed by some technologies, including EDIs and all that. Another method is the use of what? Vendor management system. There is only one point of control of inventory demand, and hence the demand variability can be what? Minimized. We have something called shortage gaming. Unrestricted ordering is not allowed. Unrestricted ordering is not allowed. Entities can reserve a fixed quantity per year and then specify ordering quantities per order, as long as the total quantity at the end of the year is equal to the reserved quantity. For this system to work, information must be shared with the upstream partners in the supply chain. Delivery synchronization is also one of the ways to make sure that bullwhip effect is avoided. And then fluctuating the prices. Often, when there is speculation and then material prices will swing upwards, contract need to be negotiated upfront in order to stabilize the supply chain without purchasing department. The end result is that you could see a speculative buildup of inventory in the supply chain. And this speculation have the characteristics of feeding itself. Retailers, in an attempt to secure inventory, will increase demand, further fueling the virtual accumulation of the inventory. So this ends the lesson on inventory, and we are going to look at strategic logistics alliances. Thank you very much, and see you in the next class. Bye.